Yo, what's the deal, folks? Top of the top of the morning. Hope everyone out there is doing well. It's your man Ease. Supposed to go live a little bit earlier. I apologize, things happen in the morning, but make sure that you engage. Leave some comments in the comment section. And if you're replaying it, leave a comment. And if you're watching live, just drop something in the chat, all right? So today we're going to talk about which producer has the best chemistry with the GOAT himself, Nas. Which producer? Sometimes when we speak about chemistry or which producer has the best chemistry or who's the best producer in terms of working with an artist, we always think of the bulk of the work, how many songs are completed, but that's not always what chemistry is about. Chemistry is, the flow, how things flow, and the not necessarily the output, but the results. So we have a bunch of producers that Nas worked with during his career. We can name going back from Illmatic, which is typically regarded as the first super producer album. You had your Primos and your Pete Rocks, your Large Professors, and Q-Tip, L.E.S was on there. And I just want to go down memory lane a bit, talk about the producers he worked with in the past and those he's completed some projects and classic records with presently. So first up, get right to it. Let's get right to it. I'm going to share my screen real fast. Watch some things here. So as we all know, Large Pro, Extra P, these are some credits that he has with Nas. We're all fans, but sometimes we forget about the records that were completed between those two. Going back to Illmatic, we got One Time for Your Mind, Halftime, Stillmatic, You're the Man, Rewind, Stay Chiseled, which most people probably remember from a mixtape, but it was also on one of Large P's albums. But it was a different version because I remember hearing the version where Nas had two verses and Extra P had one. And when it came out on Extra P joint, it was flipped around. He was the featured artist. Also, they got 1+1 and a host of other records. Next up, we all know about Primo, DJ Premier, Represent of Illmatic, Memory Lane, New York State of Mind 1 and 2. 2 was on It Was Written, the follow-up sophomore classic. I Gave You Power, one of my favorite records ever. Nas is Like, and Second Childhood of Stillmatic. Now, granted, there are so many different other records we could name, but for the interest of time, we're just highlighting some records, just to refresh your memory. But I'm sure many of you out there are Nas and hip hop connoisseurs. You know a ton of different records that they've done together. But we're just going to shed some light on which producer has the best chemistry with Nas. That's why I'll be going down just to refresh your memory. L.E.S. Yes, L.E.S. That's one name that is rarely mentioned. People forgot about L.E.S. because they haven't worked together in quite some time. But the work that they did put forth is classic material. We got Life's a B, which introduced the world to Sosa, AZ, right? Black Girl Lost, of It Was Written. That's a classic. You know what I'm saying? Gotta Love It, which is probably my favorite record off the Lost tapes. Nas was crazy off that. And the way he looped that's like a 3-bar loop. It's hard to rhyme over that. The Flyers, another classic with him and AZ off Stillmatic. Just a Moment. Everybody remember Quan? Yeah, Street's Disciple, right? That's L.E.S. Remember the Time, Street Disciple. Dope soul sample. I love the way he flipped that. Nothing Lasts Forever. Another joint off the Lost tapes, and Find Your Wealth. Like L.E.S. put in that pain with Nas, man, for sure. For sure. What we got next? We're just going down the line. Trackmasters. A lot of people give him a lot of flack for some of the blatant flips in hip hop history, but around that time, that's what was going on, man. Like people were taking 80s and 90s, joint 70s, and just flipping them, looping them, but they added their own different element to it because you could tell that the way that they mic'd up or the way the input signal was used when going into the sampler. It was totally different from what you heard. And I read some stories how they would like literally run things through guitar amps and things of that nature. Not necessarily using plugins, but just using their mind and just stressing and just creating different avenues of how to sample. So you got to give the Trackmasters their credit. Some of the records they did with Nas was If I Ruled the World. We all know that record. Street Dreams, regular version and the remix. Sinful Living, which is pretty much a flip of the Street Dreams remix beat, but he just rhyming different words over that. The Message. We got Affirmative Action, which spawned the Firm album we spoke about last week. Hate Me Now. Black Girl Lost, which is a co-production between them and L.E.S. Watch Them Ends, featuring Foxy. That's what it was written also, right? And Shootouts. So they got some joints, man. Definitely got some joints. Next up, let's slide over to Salaam Remi, one of probably the most slept on producers in hip hop. And people often forget, if you aren't a fan, some of the classics he's created with Esco. They got a dope chemistry, man. We got Poison, which is the last track on Stillmatic. Another ability or showcase of Nas to show his ability that related to creativity and how he just takes things that plague the universe and the world, and he has a way of telling the story and making it relatable and showing you how we're all affected by it. Stu Ike with the Iverson jersey, light skin with herpes. Y'all remember that, right? He went crazy on that. We got Made You Look, which was an organic single. We always speak about singles, but that was organic. That was an Apache breakbeat, right? Apache breakbeat. Took it back to 70s, early 80s. And it became probably one of the best club records of that year. And it wasn't something that they were trying to do. It was organic. That's that chemistry I'm talking about. Get Down. Get Down, Get Down, Get Down. Probably the best record off Godson. I didn't say it was, but it's up there. I think it started off the album, right? That was the first track on the album. Thief's Theme, before Will I Am did it. Thief's Theme off Street Disciple. You know what I'm saying? And I Can. Oh, Adriel Green, a Nas album totally produced by Havoc and Alchemist. 98 would have been fire. Yes, that would have been fire. That definitely would have been fire. I can't even front on you with that. Havoc and Alchemist, because he has a pretty, we're going to get into Havoc and Alchemist in a minute, but he has a dope chemistry with them as well. But that's just a testament of how great of an artist that he is, right? Because we're naming so many different producers that he has hit records with. A lot of cats can create records from within a camp, and they develop that sound. But Nas have shown that he can stay within his crew like L.E.S. or Salaam Remi, or step outside of that and make hit records with a plethora of different producers. So that's why we're having this discussion. It's not about whether or not he chooses hot or whack beats. We off that because we already know what it is. We know what that narrative is about. We don't want to talk about that anymore. But this presentation, this discussion between you and I, the ease experience we hear, we just trying to figure out which artist or producer that he has the best chemistry with, because he's given us so much music. So I want to hear from you which producer or what songs or which era it's pretty much grabbed your heart and that you pretty much gravitate towards. So we got Salaam Remi we spoke on. Who else we got next? Alchemist, ALC. Some of the records that they did. You got that's Book of Rhymes. Yes, Book of Rhymes. Book of Rhymes. That's off what? Godson, right? We got Mastermind. Revolutionary Warfare featuring Lakey the Kid. I know y'all remember that. No Ideas original. If you watched the Versus battle, and when Kiss was like, Styles, I want you to stand front and center right here, right here. And he was rhyming the Dolo joint. That was originally Nas beat. No Ideas original. That's off the Lost tapes, I believe. Yes, Barry White joint. I Did It My Way. We all know that. And Tick Tock. This is in the Ridge Blocks, featuring the legendary Prodigy. So that's him and Alchemist output. Next up, let's go to Mr. West. Got Papa Was a Player, which he ghost produced for D. Angeletti of the Hitmen. Let There Be Light off Hip Hop Is Dead. We all remember that. Still Dreaming, probably the best record off Hip Hop Is Dead. I love that. And Kanye got off on that too. Many people don't speak about that. He went crazy on that. We Major, You Mean the World to Me. I forgot who it was in the comment section last week that mentioned the fact that that was a record that they did together. I forgot all about that off the Lost Tapes too. Like that, whoever that was, shout out to you, because I went back and I was blasting that this week. That was a dope sample. Cop Shot the Kid and Everything. You know what I'm saying? Like those are some records that Nas and Kanye did together. With Kanye being the producer and Nas being the featured artist. Or We Majors off Late Registration, what happens to be Kanye's record. They also have Classic, which was featuring KRS-One and Rakim, but that was neither one of their records, so I didn't really mention that. And Primo did that beat anyway. So here we go. Let's go to Hit Boy. Hit Boy, we don't really got to go down different songs because they did 2 full projects together. We got King's Disease 1, the Grammy Award winning, yes. And we have King's Disease 2. King's Disease 2. So we've definitely got those 2. And last but certainly not least, I'll be remiss if I didn't mention other producers that I'm sure you all on the playback or who are listening live will probably say, what about these other guys? But I didn't forget you. We all fans, so we know what's up, right? We got Pete Rock, although they probably have, I can only think of like 2 records offhand. We know The World Is Yours, and then off Lost Tapes 2, you got what? QB Politics, right? When you're talking about the whole Prodigy joint, what's going on in QB. 2 dope records. But the chemistry ain't always about how many records you put out. Sometimes we're speaking on those 2 records of fire. That's a developed chemistry. Now, whether or not they can keep it going, that argument is related to longevity. But as far as a chemistry is, I would say the rate of success, right? How many times, does it work? That's chemistry, right? When you're thinking of sports and things of that nature, team needs to be cohesive, right? And have chemistry for it to work. So that's what we're speaking on as far as this goes. Do they have the chemistry? We got No ID. He did a lot of work. Well, maybe 3 or 4 tracks on Life Is Good, right? We got Daughters, Stay, which is probably the best record on there. Got the joint off, him and Common had a record together too that No ID produced. Havoc, of course. Somebody just mentioned that. Was it Adriel Green? I could be wrong. I don't have access to the names at this particular moment. I'm not sure. But someone definitely mentioned that. Yes, Adriel Green. A Nas album totally produced by Havoc and Alchemist and Circa 98 would have been fire. See, great minds think alike, man. Great minds think alike. Primo and Hit Boy in the close race for first. I'm a little late on that comment, but let's discuss it. And earlier today, Shannon Williams stated that Primo was number 1. So tell me why you believe that Primo and Hit Boy a close race for first. Because of the records that they produced together. But before we get there, let's not forget Dr. Dre and Mailman. It's important that we mention Mailman because he did a lot of co-production with Dre at that time. I'm saying with the Phone Taps and other records. Nas Is Coming. I think Hustlers too, right? No, that was a little later on. But yeah, and we got Chuck Chucky Thompson, rest in peace, who won Mike of the legendary hitman Bad Boy, the Mary J. Blige era. He worked with Nas around the Street Disciple with Godson era, where he did One Mic and Dance, and he did a lot of additional instrumentation on top of a lot of those records. Like For the Rest of My Life featuring A. Marie, which was on Street's Disciple. Very musical, you know what I'm saying? He was able to bring Nas' thoughts and ideas to life. And that's around that time, that's when Nas really got into like the instrumentation. You can hear the difference between like Godson and Street's Disciple. But let's talk about it, man. We went down the list. I mentioned Large Pro, Primo. Who else we got? I mentioned quite a few names. So many I forgot. Primo, L.E.S, Trackmasters, Salam Remy, Alchemist. Some of you are stating emphatically that the answer is Primo or Hit Boy. Something tells me we're selecting Hit Boy because of, I could be wrong, because of what they presently put out. And the win streak that they're on, right? So you can't really argue against that if got Nas' first Grammy. Not that matters, because we don't really care about those things. We care about the art. But it is good to say that Grammy Award winning Nas, just for the sake of, his longevity and what he put in the game, he deserves that. And they double back with a sequel. So you can't even front on that. But for me, and I'm just speaking on initially, when I was first thinking about this, the first thought that came to mind was Primo. I can't even front. It was Primo. But now that I think about how I was affected by the music and the songs that touched me and what I gravitated towards, because that's what it's about, right? As a fan, we're all pushed and pulled in different directions based on the content, and we always remember what we are when things drop. Or before I even get to that thought, in Nas Prime, his output with Premier was unmatched. Probably Come Get Me off Nostradamus is the worst effort, and that's still at the top tier song. Yeah, I was just listening to that last night. That sounded more like a MOP or Gangstar throwaway beat. It didn't sound like Esco. But you're right. In Nas Prime, as a younger guy, you know what I'm saying, when he was going for blood, yeah, their output was crazy. Let's go back to that slide. We got Represent. My favorite song off of, well, my second best song would be Memory Lane. That was the first time I was really introduced to like Supreme Team and Alpo and all of them. You know what I'm saying? At the time when I was younger, listening to it, because we were relatively young when that came out. As you got older, you go back, oh, that's what he was talking about. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of us wasn't outside at that time. We was old enough to listen to the music, but actually living and being outside and really experiencing what he was talking about, I wasn't that at the time. But as I've gotten older, as you do your research and you go back, you're like, oh, damn, I know exactly what he's talking about. New York State of Mind 1 and 2. New York State of Mind 1 has to be probably one of the most descriptive songs ever. I mean, it's rare that a beat and lyrics match so perfectly. That's rare. We got I Gave You Power. Oh, typo there. I gave you power, not your power. Nas is like Second Childhood. I don't know, man. This argument, you may be making a case, Adriel, for real. But Nas has more chemistry with Hit Boy because of how organically, bro, if you haven't checked it out, watch Nas Masterclass. Him and Hit Boy just vibe and have conversations that turn into songs. And that's dope, right? And that's the maturation process of Nas. I think I spoke about this a while ago, is how he is speaking. He's creating music that he's no longer overthinking. Sometimes you could tell like he would get in his own head, like not necessarily being forced to do things, but doing things just for the sake of doing it. Like if you listen to Street's Disciple, a lot of those records felt that way. And that album isn't as bad as most people make it up to be. But once again, we're going to keep repeating the same things. He was just being compared to himself, which is hard to do when you come out the gate with two classics. But one thing I can say about Nas, and I think we can all agree, the majority of his music, I'm willing to bet 85% or above, ages very well. You can go back and listen to his music. You may not necessarily, even Nostradamus, it may not be your favorite, but if you go back and listen to it, you're like, oh, wow. Wow. For me, like I was saying before, plus Nas gives the current young boy energy, what makes Nas feel reinvigorated. Nas actually lets Hit Boy produce him rather than just supplying him with beats. Adriel Green, you are an individual who understands music. You're right. You're right. You're right, because you can hear a lot of, even like post-production, a lot of things are played on top of, like if you go back to, is that Composure? I think it's a saxophone or horn solo in there. Like we used to get that from Oludaro, but that's Nas pop. So that's like a pop's going there and play that. But now we're getting like I was speaking on, like the shift from Godson to Street's Disciple, how he matured more musically, more instrumentation. And now Hit Boy is definitely taking it to another level. It's almost like a trust there, especially if you come off a Grammy win per se. Not to say that they care about that, but I'm not saying they don't throw it in the attic when they get it either, though. But the trust, there's a trust there. You're right. your trust. There's definitely a trust. But for me, I can only speak for myself. When I look at the list, these songs here, man, are what some of the songs I always go back to. And that's what I love him and L.E.S.'s chemistry. And which is weird, not weird, but while some people were so fixated on Nas remaining true to what he came in the game doing, because these producers have given him so many classics. Like when you go back to the Primo slide, this is why people wanted him to do a full record with Primo, because of what they gave him, right? But these are records that we often forget about as well. Life's a Black Girl Lost, Gotta Love It, Love That, The Fly is Just a Moment, Remember the Times, Nothing Lasts Forever, Find Your Wealth. Like, these are records that L.E.S. produced that I remember exactly where I was when I first heard it. Remember the Time, I used to run that back a million times on Streets Disciple. Black Girl Lost. That was fire. That conceptual record, how he that when you listen to that song and Whole Happy Jackie off AZ's Do or Die, listen to them back to back and just they're telling the same story from two different perspectives. Like, that's fire to me. Like, it's amazing, man. I appreciate you, bro, man, for real. Adriel Green, you definitely know your stuff, and I appreciate you being here, for real. Side note, where we at? On L.E.S, I don't like how he gets disrespected. Thank you. Nobody even talks about him anymore. Life's a Bitch could be argued as the best song. Pardon my language. That's why I ain't really want to curse on this joint. But on L.E.S, I don't like how he gets disrespected. Nobody ever mentions him. But the last time we worked with Nas was what? Streets Disciple? I could be wrong. That's the last time I can remember. Nas kind of went in a different direction. He started to gravitate towards Salam Remy just a bit more, but L.E.S definitely gets disrespected. People forget. Didn't he do Sugar Hill for AZ? He did quite a few records, man. Like, he definitely, at that time, he was on fire. But those are the records I gravitate to. But we often forget about Trackmasters. People front on them because of what they did. A lot of people don't like the Diddy Trackmasters era because they were taking old songs and totally not really adding anything to it. But that was nonsense too, because they did a lot of live instrumentation. Like I stated before, the way they sampled and did different things, their samples sound totally different from everyone else. And If I Ruled the World, Street Dreams, the Regular Joint remix featuring Kel, Sinful Living, we got The Message, Affirmative Action, which gave us The Firm, Black Girl Lost. Them and L.E.S worked together. Watch them, shootouts. Like, he has developed a bond with so many different producers, man, to the point to a lot of these cats, people were running to them because of what he was creating with them. Alchemist. What did these slides again? Book of Rhymes, another conceptual joint. Nobody really did that. Had the sound effects and everything, crumbling up the paper, throwing it away. No Ideas Original is probably top 20 best freestyle beats. Like when cats go to the radio or when they want to get their bars off, that's one of those beats they hop on. You know what I'm saying? But AZ's guest verse is arguably the best ever, only behind Nas on Verbal Intercourse. Do the last, yeah, you're right. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people say AZ stole a show from Nas, but was his verse better? Yeah, the way he started the song was impeccable. But I think they both, when you're dealing with music, they both brought to the song what was needed. If Nas was too bar heavy and went crazy, it probably wouldn't have been exactly what it was intended to be or what it should have been. We got exactly what we needed, and he definitely gave us jewels in that joint. I switched my motto. Instead of saying F tomorrow, that buck that brought a bottle could have struck the lotto. What? Different. Young man thinking like that. I switched my motto. Instead of saying F tomorrow, that buck that brought a bottle could have struck the lotto. Crazy. Watched another YouTube podcast. The host kind of said that song was on Where's it, Pete Row? Wow. See how we get caught up in names? You absolutely correct. Yeah. I concur. Because at that time, everything waste. And being that it said Trackmasters and L.E. stretched to the beat on there too, right? On there, RZA definitely wasn't on there. Pete Rock had no joints on there. And Dre had one joint on it too. Nas was coming. But you're right. RZA, Pete Rock. My question is, I think that album for the younger generation, like report I can't even front. Throw something in the comment section. We chat it up here. You know how we do. We Esco fans trying to keep the content fresh and not being the people on the sideline talking about the young cats or even cats who grew up with you that things went over their head, bringing it back to the essence of that you learn something every time you listen. Oh, I didn't catch that. It's like watching the Martin episode. Classic material does. It doesn't die. It has a way of evolving with you. And as you evolve, you start to catch on to different things that you necessarily wouldn't have caught on to in your younger days or your less mature days. Trackmasters' hate was unfair. Nas said he had to compete with the big sound that Bad Boy was putting out. See, I just said that. Yeah, like people hate on that era. That's why he worked with them. Plus, Stout managed them. And that was part of the reason why Cormega didn't make the cut. Because Trackmasters also did Nature's first album. So there was a lot of political stuff within that crew, man. But everything worked out the way it was supposed to, man. But let me know, man, who y'all think? Adriel and Shannon Williams both said that Primo has the best chemistry with Nas. But I think it's a testament of his output and his work ethic and all the above that he was able to have chemistry with so many different producers. And that's what makes him different, man. On that honorable mention slide, along with No ID and Havoc and Pete Rock and Dr. Dre, these are artists that he's done records with, and he got bangers, but they're not even in the top 5 as far as it comes to the best songs that he's done with other producers. You know what I'm saying? Because even Large Pro gets fronted on sometimes because a lot of the records they did weren't necessarily released commercially. But You're the Man. Go back to Stillmatic and listen to the bounce on those drums. And that sample, to the way he manipulated it, it's really saying Sugar Man. I don't really reveal samples. I'm not going to do that because I don't know if it was clear or not. But if you ever find time to research and find out what the original sample is, he's actually saying Sugar Man. But he truncated it and filtered it in some way to where the sample was saying You're the Man. Like that's crazy to me, man. He was in the studio with some wizards, and he happened to be a wizard. So this is why we got so much great material from that God, man. How do you think Nas would have sounded with Marley Marl? The second album was supposed to be totally produced by him, but after On the Real leaked to the whole hood, Nas didn't go back to Marley. On the Real was on after it was on the Stillmatic 20th anniversary, right? Yeah, it was on there. Because I love that One Love remix too off that joint. But on the real, you know what? Marley Marl, I appreciate what he brings to the game, who he is, what he is. But I think his sound was too minimal for Nas in the sense of around that era. Because when you listen to even with the Trackmasters, It was very musical. It had very many different layers, and it wasn't necessarily chopped up samples and break beats. It existed on the foundation, but these dudes was actually creating music, even if they were just replaying the whole joint over. But they was bringing in guitarists, uh, keyboardists. So it could have worked with Marley Marl, but I don't know in hindsight if I wanted to hear that. I didn't want to hear too many on the rails. That was cute. It was dope, but it wasn't an affirmative action. It wasn't I gave you power. It wasn't watch them ends. It wasn't shootouts. Yeah, you're right. Marley was past his prime then. The sound was changing. Yeah, it was. Not to say what he did wasn't dope, but no, I don't think it would have fit Nas too well. It's almost like as many producers like who do you work with? Like Pete Rock. They had a dope chemistry, but I don't know if I'd necessarily want to hear entire Pete Rock album with Nas. And why do you say that? Because Pete Rock sound as dope as he was so original and so different to where his limitations never stuck out like a sore thumb. What I mean by that is if you listen to Mecca and the Soul Brother and The Main Ingredient, which is my favorite album by Pete Rock and CL Smooth, a lot of his stuff sounds the same. It's like it's monotonous, but it was so different from what everyone else is doing that no one ever really speaks on that. And I don't know if I would have wanted to hear an entire album from those two. Because a lot of his stuff is the same tempo, same type drums. The bass line definitely be jumping. But even with Primo always gave Nas a variation. Memory Lane and Represent sound nothing like each other. And it's two totally different tempos. And then we get to I Gave You Power, which sounds nothing like the other two. And then we fast forward, 5-6 years, and then you get Nas's like, no, that's 3 years, because that's I Am. 3 years to 99, then you get Nas's like, and then we go, maybe 2 to 3 years, and now we got Second Childhood. Like it was, if you listen to the slides we were showing and those he have a chemistry with, they never really gave him the same formula-based joint. Each album, they brought a different type sound. So I just want to know, man, what do y'all think? Who has the best chemistry with Esco? Production-wise. There's no right answer. I just like to have these discussions, man, because listening to some of you talk in the comment section or in the chat, it reminds me of how dope he is. And I'm a student as well. I don't know everything. I learned so much. And I go back and listen like, oh, wow, that individual was correct. I didn't even peep that. I didn't even peep that. Like Adriel Green just stated how he was listening to a podcast and they stated if the credit said such and such name, it wouldn't be hated on as much, which is absurd, but it's the truth. Because that album is fire. It's a classic. So let me know what y'all think, man. I appreciate everybody's support out there, man. A lot of people don't hop on live because, it's the weekend, got a lot of things going on. It's a holiday season, but I appreciate all y'all that replay it. Come back and listen to it at a later time, man. I appreciate all that. And I always try to engage with the comments because, like I stated before, I'm not a lecturer. I'm not I don't consider myself the oracle that knows everything. I'm learning as well. And you can apply these lessons and these conversations we have to many different avenues in life, man. It's about growth, man. Life is about discourse, discussion, and building. And we learn so much from other individuals if you're just open-minded. So shout out to all of y'all, man. Like the Shiesty 30s and Adriel Greens and the Shannon Williams. I could be forgetting a bunch of different names, but Supreme Sun, a bunch of y'all I see in the comment section constantly. Mike 100, a bunch of you, and I appreciate you, man. I'm here for the long haul. I'm bringing different content every week. You know what I'm saying? Time permits, and we're gonna make it happen, man. But yo, let me know in the comment section if you replaying this, which producer Nas has the best chemistry with. I want you to answer first and then listen to the video because I showed some slides. and look at the discography with some of the producers, and it may change your mind. Like I stated, I love his chemistry with L.E.S. Some like Primo. Some feel like Extra P, Large Professor was the best. Plus, all the singles Hit Boy produced don't sound forced. That shows you how Nas singles sound. Plus, Nas has been sneaky good with his hooks since linking with Hit Boy. I gotta vote Hit Boy Primo because Primo sound now would be kind of dated if they did a whole project. Yeah, Hit Boy versus Nas doesn't have a signature sound, but the beat sound. Yeah, you know what's crazy? Listening to what you say, Hit Boy is still evolving. Nas linked up with him while he was a great producer, but he's still growing. He's such a young man. He's being introduced to different things, man. He ain't even get into his orchestra bag. He ain't really do any of those things yet. Hit Boy has his ceiling. He's nowhere near his ceiling. And Nas linked up with him while he was a great producer and still learning. So that's a very valid point right there. And Nas doesn't really have to work as hard. Remember that quote he made about how, he don't choose certain beats because that's the easy route and things of that nature. He wants people to pay attention to the words, which is dope. But ain't nothing better than a complete song where we got dope beats and wizardry when it comes to the pen. Not to say he selects bad beats. That's not what I'm saying. But sometimes Nas would go out of his way to do the total opposite of what he thinks we want him to do, because that's what artists do. They don't really conform to a formula, I should say, which is why he switches around so much. And that's a true test and testament of an artist too. They get bored because most people would say we're going back to the same thing, but we have to keep reiterating it. Why we don't get another Illmatic? Because he got tired of doing that. Why he not doing the same stuff he used to do for It Was Written? Because he's outgrown it. Why we can't get another Nas is like, because it was done in 99. Like, he's evolving always evolving. And I did something interesting too. I listened to that earlier this week. I listened to Fetus off of Lost Tapes, and then I went and listened to Composure, Nas's verse. It's amazing. I want y'all to do that today. Fetus is when he's talking about when he's born, and he's in his mom's womb, things of that nature. The whole process, been in there for 9 months. And Composures, he's talking about his childhood, just a bit, and maybe the first 8 bars. I thought that was amazing how this man has grown so much, and he's able to talk about probably the same experience, but make you feel 2 different ways. Almost 15 to 18 years later. So I want y'all to do that. Listen to Fetus today off the Lost Tapes. All this is available. This is not unreleased things you can't get your hand on. We got a streaming service. You can go on Amazon and get the CD. Somebody's selling it. And then listen to Composure. Composure, if you don't know, is of King's Disease 2. It's the track. I think it could be, is it 13 or 14? I could be wrong. But Hit Boy starts the song off. And then Nas has a second verse. But do that, man. Like, Nas is always evolving, man. And like I said, we can apply that to our daily lives, man. Sometimes evolve. Try different things. That's what art is all about, man. You have your own canvas. Make it happen. But my vote, the safe choice is Primo, but I'm going with L.E.S, man. L.E.S. I think Nas has the best chemistry with L.E.S. And for those who didn't get the opportunity to see why I state that, I'll show you now. Second. Been having issue with the computer, but I chose L.E.S because of songs, man. Life's a Big, Remember the Times, one of my favorite joints of Street's Disciple, and did the Flyers, Black Girl Lost. And some people chose Primo because of the obvious representing memory lane. And Nas is like, but let me know what you think. I don't want to keep repeating the same things, man. And the beauty of the conversations that we have, it's rare that anyone has the same thoughts, perspective, which is the greatest gift to me as an individual who tries to create content. Learning from you is an amazing experience, man. Y'all be coming with it for real. But where's this trying at? Go through this slide once more. That's one thing about streaming live, man. These computers and network moves exactly how it wants to when it wants to. You have no power over that. Bump it. Obviously, I'm having technical difficulties, but I appreciate you guys. Let me know what you think. Which producer has the best chemistry with Nas? Large Pro, DJ Premier,